GL.iNet reached out to me and asked if I would like to look at one of their latest travel routers, the Beryl. And since I use a lot of their products, I decided I would give it a shot. Now, they didn't pay me for this. They did send me the product, but they have no idea what I'm going to say, and they have no input into the video. So what I say is what I say. So let's take a quick look at what's in the box, and then we'll dig into some settings and look at the interface. This is the Beryl from GL.iNet. I've used a number of these routers before, so let's just unbox it real quick and see what we have here. So let's dive into the specs for this router. This router is a high-performance next-generation pocket-sized router, etc., etc. It has powerful hardware, first-class cybersecurity protocol, unique modern design. The max throughput is 400 megabits plus 807 on 2.4 gig and 867 megabits on 5 gig. It has a CPU with 3 gigabit ports. And it works with VPN and Tor. So they have Wireguard, they have OpenVPN, and they have Tor all built in. And of course, talks about security here. Now, they did some testing themselves, and they got 91 megabits speed on a local network, internal network, using Wireguard, and 21 meg using OpenVPN. Now, I'm a big fan of Wireguard, and also Tailscale, which is based on Wireguard. Both of those are super fast VPN options. Now, I haven't seen anything about Tailscale on the router, but I do see Wireguard on there, and we'll talk about using Wireguard in a little bit. And let's see, Tor service is pre-installed, and you can also do DNS encryption with Cloudflare. It's dual band, 2.4 and 5 gig, IPv6 capable, has VPN client, and it can be a VPN server if you want to do that. It has Tor anonymity, DNS encryption. It has OpenWrt pre-installed, which is actually how it's running. It has the ability to add up to 512 gig of micro SD card storage, 3 gigabit ports. It has a Type-C power input, and it has a USB-A 3.0 port. And you can go through here and see some of the specifications. It's a dual core 880 megahertz MT620 or 7621A processor. It has 256 meg of DDR3 RAM, 32 meg of flash RAM. It does all the Wi-Fi protocols. Speed, of course, 400 meg on 2.4, 867 on 5 gig. And then it's got 2 undetachable external Wi-Fi antennas. You saw in the unboxing, I showed you those antennas. And then it works anywhere from 32 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 to 40 Celsius, and storage, whatever. And then it weighs 184 grams. I said it was kind of heavy. I don't know what that is in pounds, but it's 184 grams. So there are the specs of the router. Let's get into playing around with it. Okay, let's plug in the router and just see what it does. Got my power plug going here. There we go. There's some pretty lights. Thought that might be a little light bar of some sort. So we'll go over to our Wi-Fi settings here, and we should see a network called GL.MT 1300, which is this. We have 5G and we have a regular. So let's just go with regular. And I don't want to connect automatically, but I will just connect here. The network key is a default called Good Life. Good Life. Type it here. All right, click on next. Okay, it's connected with no internet, which is normal. And now we can go to an IP address. 192.168. It says here 8.1. And we should have our browser configuration. And this is going to look very similar to any other GL.iNet or GL.iNet router configuration. So we'll set up English for our language. And then what we have to do is set up our username and password for our admin setup here. All right, so I've set up my username and password for admin, or my password for admin. And now we can start going into all of the settings. So the way I have it set up right now is it's connected to my network. And you can see here that I have it connected to my home network, and it's using the router. And I have one client, which is actually my laptop here that I'm looking at. And I've done a couple things already, kind of speed testing this a little bit. Now, this speed test result that you're looking at right here is a speed test directly on my Wi-Fi without using the router, when I'm connecting my laptop directly to the router. And I have an open speed test application running on another PC in my house. And we're doing this over wireless. It's got a gig internet connection to the PC that is actually running the open speed test. Let's go ahead and connect up to the router. Now I'm connected to the router. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run a speed test based on the router itself, or connected to the router itself. So let's go ahead and refresh the screen here first, make sure I can get to it, and I can, and we'll click start. Now the router is sitting down here on the floor next to my desk, and it's connecting to my Wi-Fi, which is actually a floor down below where we're at here. Pretty much the laptop and the router are in the same place when I'm running the speed test. Now what this is doing is this is a bridge between my laptop and my Wi-Fi. So it's basically, two Wi-Fis connected together. So I don't expect it to be as fast as running directly from the laptop to my my main Wi-Fi, and that makes sense. But if you look at the setting, or if you look at the speed here, if you're in a hotel or if you're in a remote location or somewhere where you're using this, the 30 meg down and the 41 meg up is going to be plenty for what you're doing. You're most likely not running gaming where you need low latency. You're most likely not doing something where you need a huge amount of bandwidth capacity. In fact, in most hotels and places like that where you might use this travel router, you're not going to get this speed anyway. They're going to cap you at 5 or 10 meg. So this is plenty of speed. It's working just fine. Your ping is 7 milliseconds, 1 millisecond of jitter. So really you could, if you're doing VoIP or making Skype calls or, Zoom calls or whatever, this is probably just fine for you. So what we'll do is we'll scan. Now you can see already that I have this all set up, but we're going to click this little scan button above my head here. And it's going to scan for Wi-Fi networks in range for you to connect to. And if you're in a hotel environment or something like that, then you will connect this way. So here are my options for connecting to the Wi-Fi. And of course, I've already got this one set up. You just add your password and then you join. If you want it to remember, you click this little, or you toggle this on so that it remembers every time you join the network. So once you get logged on, you'll see that you have an IP address and a gateway and some DNS servers. If you don't see that, you're not actually connected. And you're good to go. You can start jumping out on the intranet. So I can go to any of my favorite sites here. I guess let's just look at some weather. And it should work just fine. So I'm on our local National Weather Service page, and it loads up just fine. So now you're on the Wi-Fi. You're on the network let's just assume that I'm in a hotel room. Now I've connected between the router and the hotel. But what I'm doing is I'm sending all my traffic over the hotel network with no kind of VPN service, no kind of encryption or protection. So someone could be snooping on whatever I'm doing in the hotel room or the coffee shop or whatever else. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to go back in here. I'll go ahead and close this out. And we're going to work on the VPN part of things here. Now, if you come down here to VPN, you have some options. You've got OpenVPN client server, WireGuard client, WireGuard server, and then a couple other things down here. Now, I'm going to use the WireGuard client. And the way I'm doing this is I have Home Assistant set up at home, and I have WireGuard as an add-on to Home Assistant. And in that, I have the ability to connect to and use my home network as my VPN endpoint. So I can go from the hotel or wherever to my home network. Number one, I can get to all my local devices on my local network, and I can use it as an exit node to go out to the internet and do other things. So I'm going to click on WireGuard client. And you'll see here, when you do that, if you don't have an endpoint or a location already set up, it's going to ask you to choose from one of these two commercial setups. I'm going to do a configuration or manual input. And when you set up WireGuard, for instance, on Home Assistant, like I did, you'll have these items available to you. And I'm not going to go through the whole setup of WireGuard on my Home Assistant. I do have videos on WireGuard and other VPN services. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to put in the information required to configure my WireGuard. So the IP address, so you do need a private key, and that's generated on the WireGuard side of things. So let me go ahead and take the private key and paste that in. It's pretty long. Now, for those of you watching the video, this is a temporary connection, and it will disappear after I film the video. So don't worry about me hiding the private keys and all of that other stuff, because it's not necessary. And also make sure you type the IP address correctly or it won't like it. All right, so I'm going to paste in my private key. And my listen port is optional, so I'm going to leave that blank for now. My DNS is optional, and my MTU is optional. So now I need my public key as well, and I will put that in here. Again, these disappear after the film of the video, so it's not a huge issue for those that are paying attention. My endpoint host will be something that I can get to from the public internet. So it'd be some sort of routable, publicly routable domain name or something else. I'm going to use something internal here because we're doing this on my local network. So allowed IPs is required. I'm going to allow all IPs. You can get into the whole WireGuard setup and understand how that works in terms of what IPs you're going to allow on this side. But I'm going to put in this for my allowed IPs. And then I don't have a pre-shared key. And then I'm going to click on next. Got to give it a name, demo VPN, and we'll just add that. All right, so now we're going to connect to the demo VPN. And if you have more than one, you can select it from the list here. So I'm going to connect. And if everything goes well, you'll get a green little dot over here saying you're connected to the VPN. And here we are. And you'll start getting information here on the transfer through the VPN. So now I'm connected to the VPN. So essentially what we've done is now we're taking all of the traffic. And if we go back over here and look, we're going from me, the client, and you can see here you have this WireGuard badge telling you you're connected to the VPN. So all my traffic is going from here through this router over WireGuard VPN and across this Wi-Fi connection to the other end of the VPN endpoint, which is the one you're running it on, your home or wherever you're going to have that VPN endpoint. So the traffic from here all the way through to where you're going to is now encrypted over the tunnel. So you don't have to worry about somebody snooping on your internet traffic that you're running through this setup like this. So if we go into more settings down here now, you'll have an option for custom DNS server. And this is where we talk about using Cloudflare over TLS or DNS over TLS. If you turn this on right here, this now, and you can choose between NextDNS or Cloudflare, and I use Cloudflare. If you turn on this DNS over TLS, then it will automatically encrypt your traffic so that somebody can't snoop on what you're doing. I always like to do this, even on my home stuff. I'll set up some sort of TLS so that my information is not being sent over the public network, so someone can target me for ads and stuff like that. But that's super simple on this router. It's already built in. You just turn the switch on and you're ready to go. So now we're running on a VPN. Now we're running from basically what you would consider as a kind of hotel or coffee shop setup. Your traffic is all encrypted and you're good to go over Wi-Fi. Now this whole thing applies to is you notice on this router, there's 3 gigabit ports, right? You can see them right here. On these 3 gigabit ports, you can plug in a laptop or something, a computer, and you can use this router the same exact way. So instead of saying WLAN, wireless LAN clients, it will say LAN clients. And on the LAN clients, then it will also take all this traffic and encrypt it through. So what do we want to do next? I want to take this and I'm going to pretend like, or I will be on the public internet over a cellular network, and we're going to do kind of the same thing. I'm going to undo this. I'm going to disconnect from this network here. So I'm no longer on my home Wi-Fi. I'm going to take this router or this little Verizon USB dongle, and I'm going to plug it in right here to where the USB port is on the router. And now the only thing I do notice is that in order for this plug to work, it's kind of upside down. So you can see here that in order for me to plug this in, I had to flip it over upside down, and I can't set the router down and have this thing straight up. I would like it to be like this, but that's the bottom of the router, and these antennas, they don't go the other way. So they only go up like that. So now I have this weird conglomeration. That's just a function of this port. If the port were flipped the other way, the USB port, then I could plug this in the other direction and it would be fine. The other thing I noticed too, you can see it kind of here, is I have to, in order for this dongle to fit in here, I kind of have to bend it sideways a little bit. Long term, that's probably not good for the port. You can probably get a USB extension cable and plug into here, and that would solve all these problems. And I have some of those. So if you end up in a situation like this where you're kind of bending this sideways, get yourself a USB extension cable. That way you can plug this into the router or plug the extension cable here into the router and then take this out so you don't have an issue. Now we can see that I have a couple of lights on here. So I'm connected to the internet via my USB dongle here from Verizon. And let's see what we have here. Let's check and see if we have internet listed. It should say tethering here at some point. So what's interesting is my Unify network has the same IP address as this router, so that could be an issue. So we're connecting back up to it because I wasn't on its Wi-Fi. All right, so I'm connected, but it says no internet. So let's see what's going on here. Get off of this. And it's not currently tethering, so I have to choose here once I plug it in which device I'm tethering, and it automatically chooses ETH1. That's the only device I have plugged in, so let me just connect to it. And that should get me a tethering icon here, and it should get me a connection across to this. Now it does show tethering, so it disconnected me to Tether. So now here's my IP address that was assigned to me for this particular connection from Verizon. I am now connected. Let's see if we have any internet access. Let me go to my favorite weather page here. I don't. Now what I do want to do is I want to make sure that I don't have the VPN running. You can see over here it's yellow. Let's turn that off because that's probably causing an issue. So as soon as that stops running there, then we'll go back over and see if we have some internet. So here we go. So this tells me there's a DNS issue. So let me go in here and let me turn off. Let me turn off the DNS settings that I was using for for Cloudflare. Let's just disable that and see if that's the problem. So success, it says here. Yep. So if you run into an issue, I don't know why that would do that, unless Verizon is doing something to block that. That may be the issue. Let me go to my other page here. So here we go. It's working fine now. So you got to be careful when you change some of these settings. You got to make sure that the settings you change don't affect your ability to do things. In this case, that's the case. Let me turn it back on now that I'm on the internet. apply it. And let's just see if it breaks stuff. It says success now. Let's just do news.google.com. Okay, so there it is. We have it working just fine. So now it is sending it. So it looks to me like you can't enable that until you're actually on the network that you're using. So what I'm going to do now is let's just do a speed test. I can't do a speed test to my local OpenDNS speed test server because I'm not on the local network anymore. But I can go to a place like Speedtest.net is one I use a lot. And let's just see what we get for speed on this. So there you have it, 37 meg down, 10 meg up, using a USB dongle connected to my Beryl router. All right, so one of the other things I want to play with here is to go back into the VPN settings, and I'm going to change the host name to the host name of my local, or the public routable host name of my VPN server, so we can get to it over the public internet. And I'm going to, if you want to edit it, you click on management, you choose the server. If you have more than one profile, you'll just choose that profile, click it down. It brings the all the menu items down below, and then you can update and change things. Okay, I've updated it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to connect. We're going to connect over the public internet now and make sure that it works. So we should get a green dot here. We should have Wireguard show up. And so here we have it. So now I have a connection from my laptop through the router, through Verizon on the USB dongle, back over to my VPN endpoint, which just happens to be my house on Home Assistant. And now I should be able to get to my local network. Okay, so there's my speed test. I'm on the local network here, and it's all encrypted from point A to point B. And I'm going to run a speed test. Now, a minute ago, you saw we got about 20, 30 meg on the speed test over Verizon without the VPN. Let's just see what it looks like here with the VPN. So our ping is 110 milliseconds, jitter of 1 second, but our speed is pretty good still. Still up in the 30, 40 megabit range for download. Let's see what we get for upload. Now we're up 2 meg. Now, a lot of this could be related to signal of where the device is that I'm running here, as well as restrictions that Verizon has placed on upload, download speed, stuff like that. So the testing is non-scientific. If I were to do this properly, I would have multiple adapters on multiple networks and trying all kinds of stuff. Well, I'm not going to go through all that because I don't have all those adapters. But it does show that it works just fine over the VPN. If we go directly to speedtest.net and just get another result of a Verizon, this is how we did it a minute ago, but now we're going to be going over the VPN to do it. And you can actually see that I'm on the AT&T network, which is where I'm currently sitting for my home internet. A meg up, and then download of 20 meg on the Verizon network. All right, so that is WireGuard on the Beryl router and how easy it is to set up. Now remember, a lot of this stuff comes ready to go out of the box. I didn't do anything. I didn't install any plugins. I didn't install any extra software. You can go in here and you can change your Wi-Fi information. Right now I left it as default with the default key. You can give it a new Wi-Fi name. You can choose the security level. You can choose SSID visibility, the Wi-Fi mode, the bandwidth, the channel, all kinds of stuff on here for both 2.4 and 5 gig. Now this router also has the ability to set up a guest network. You can run a 2.4 gig or 5 gig guest network. Again, you get a quick look at clients. You can also enable real-time speed and traffic statistics. If you leave it on, it requires more of the CPU. Again, we talked about upgrade. Check your upgrades occasionally, see if there's any new upgrades. Now, this router can also do a full firewall setup. You can do port forwards. You can set up a DMZ. So this router becomes has the ability to set up a host as a DMZ. You can do ports on the router, so you can reach the router stuff publicly. VPN, again, we talked about OpenVPN, server and client. You can run a WireGuard server on this as well. The internet kill switch. You would have to set up the router as a VPN client for any of the router's clients to be able to connect to the internet. So if you enable this, your laptop can't get to the internet without going through the VPN. It basically drops all traffic that is going outbound of your devices, whatever clients are connected to this router. It drops that and forces it out the VPN client. VPN policies, you can set up some VPN policies. You can choose by MAC address or domain IP, and then choose the rules. Only allow certain MAC addresses to use the VPN, or you have to force certain domains out the VPN. So like the kill switch, you can tailor it a little bit better. Everything can go out the VPN except certain domains. So if, let's say, you have a work domain and you want that only to go through the VPN, you would then set this up to either the IP of the domain and make sure everything that hits that for that domain gets routed out the VPN and not out the public internet. So you have some capability to set up some limited policies that way. And then Tor, I won't get into Tor, but basically Tor is an anonymized network. This is enabled out of the box. You can pick an exit node country, so all your traffic looks like it's coming from a specific country. Applications, we've got lots of plugins, and then you can do file sharing and multimedia file sharing. But you have to have that SD card in the router in order for this to be useful, especially when you're installing a bunch of plugins. You probably want to have some sort of SD card plugged into the router for that purpose. Remote access, you can use Good Cloud to manage this router or groups of routers. You can also use dynamic DNS. Now, if you're plugging this into a location, let's say your house, and let's say this is the endpoint for your VPN, you can turn on dynamic DNS. So if your IP address changes on your local device or your local network, it will report that out, and you can always get back to it using this. Captive portal, you can set that up. So if a guest connects to your guest network, it'll show them a portal like one of those hotel sites or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of stuff this router does that's beyond probably the need for a travel router, but you can use this router for other purposes as well. And then there's IGMP snooping, a whole bunch of other stuff. We have the ability to set admin passwords, the LAN IP. You can change this. You can even give a different guest IP range for guests. You can set the time zone. You can do MAC cloning. IPv6, custom DNS router we talked about. Button settings. You can switch this button to either turn WireGuard on or off. So this is interesting. If you look at these buttons on the side here, this button is on or off. It's a toggle switch. If you choose the ability to toggle WireGuard on or off as a client, anytime I switch this button now, I can turn my VPN on or off directly from here without having to go into the interface and do it. That's kind of handy. So if you want to go somewhere and you want to make sure your VPN is on in the on mode, you can turn that button on right there without having to log into the interface. Otherwise, you would have to log into the interface and configure it or turn it on or off. And of course, you can choose the Open VPN toggle or Tor toggle as well for the button. Network mode, you can choose it as a router, an access point, an extender, or WDS. That has its own uses. And then advanced, you have to install Lucy, but with Lucy, you can get into the whole OpenWRT setup, all the advanced functions. That gets really into beyond the use of this as a travel router, unless you're doing a very specific thing for it. This is an awesome little router. At the time of filming this, it was about $80 US for this router, which is really a good deal for what it does. It's a very powerful router. It has a lot of options built into the box. You can do VPN, you can do Tor, you can do tethering, you can do bridging of Wi-Fi networks. All of this is out of the box right away. Just plug it in and go. I think it's a super powerful router for 80 bucks. It's got a full firewall suite on it. It's super simple to set up. You plug it in, configure the Wi-Fi, and away you go. GL.iNet, I've used their products for years. I have the small little puck routers. I have the Slate router running in my truck. So I really enjoy the GL.iNet products. I think they're solid. I think they work really well. They do what they say, and they're inexpensive to purchase. So if you have any questions about this router, let me know down below in the comments. You can always contact me on Discord. I really appreciate you watching. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. I will make occasional videos about products in addition to all my Home Assistant software stuff that I talk about all the time. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.